I'm so excited to hear your story. And like every good story, it's so good to start from the beginning. So, Matt Rai, what is your story? What's your story, Matt?
Yes, sir. What's your
So,
story, man?
all right, question. What is this? What's my story?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I don't think I've ever been asked what's my story. Well, I was born in the UK. I lived in wh- when I was 12 to kind of 16. I spent long periods of time in India, rural India as well. So, growing up in kind of a bit of
Okay.
a privileged background in the UK, and then seeing how rural Indian kind of kids live and stuff is was a kind of a stark contrast. And I think that's kind of shaped the way I kind of perceive the world and what I can do to kind of make a bit of a difference. And so then I went back to the UK, was educated over there, and then finished my masters, and then lived in Canada for a year. Went back to the UK. I was a musician for a while. Worked in like loads of. I was a firefighter actually as well.
Oh, okay.
Worked in
Cool.
like t-shirt shops. Yeah, I was firefighter for 6 years in the UK, Nottinghamshire. Then moved to Australia 15 years ago. Had a couple of
Okay.
great kids. They're now 10 and 11. Just dropped them off at school,
Wow.
and then had a couple of kind of standard rat race jobs in kind of sales and stuff. It was just a way to kind of pay the bills, really.
For sure.
And then
Yeah.
moved
Sure.
away
Yeah.
from that into life coaching. Got certified there
Okay.
about 5 years ago.
Okay.
I
Okay.
also kind of trade as well on the side, kind of re-educated myself to kind of trade to kind of make a bit of money and make ends meet again without kind of joining the 9 to 5 kind of rat race. And then I kind of fairly recently re-picked up playing music again. So I've released an EP, and then I've got a couple of more singles coming out later in the month. So that's pretty exciting as well. And then obviously going kind of back to the start, as it were, my experiences in India, and then I traveled to Nepal. I've been to Nepal 5 times.
Wow.
Set up a
Wow.
charity, an Australian charity that supports kids in especially girls in rural Nepal to kind of help build schools. Because Australian money goes a long way in Nepal,
Mhm.
and that's we've got a team of in Australia. In Australia, we've got a team of 6 other volunteers
Wow.
Wow.
that do the marketing side of things. We meet up every fortnight, we fundraise and all the rest of that stuff. And the music as well is in support of that as well. So we almost sold out. It's like 100 people in Melbourne at a gig 2 weeks ago. And, that all went to kind of increasing the Schools for Nepal brand, and some of the ticket sales went towards the charity as well. And we've
Wow.
just actually
Wow.
we've raised enough money now to finish off our 5th school project in, again, rural Nepal. So we've just done that, and then we're on to the next real project, really. So yeah, it's kind of exciting. Yeah, it's a bit of an exciting time. And so yeah, yeah. I guess it was the life coaching is really well during the training and everything like that. It was you could be busy, but are you busy
Sure.
doing the things that are important to you? And so I try as best as I can to go because when I was working kind of the 9 to 5 kind of rat races, it were I was so busy. I was
Mm.
busy doing
Sure.
nothing.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that until I kind of stepped back from it. I was busy just
Mhm.
responding to emails and just in that kind of world where I thought it was important. And, when you take a couple of steps back, and sometimes you need to do that. Read a couple of, I only started, sounds terrible, but I've only just really started reading about 5 years ago, quite avidly reading 5 years ago. So like,
Sure.
Stephen Covey books and Eckhart Tolle books, Dr. Gabor Mate, and there's quite a lot. So and also my son is ADHD autistic,
Mm-mm.
and then a couple of years later, when I kind of read a bit more about it and tried to understand it, and then I got diagnosed with ADHD autism as
Mhm.
well,
Yeah.
and that means kind of the focus was a real struggle. And then it was a case of I can focus, and my son River he can focus as well, but only on things that are important and he cares about. And establishing that full stop is really important. So a lot with my clients, they're all really busy. Everyone's busy, but are you busy? Are you busy on stuff that's actually important to you? And
Right.
that takes a bit of a level of humility to go, am I doing the right things? And again, with my coaching clients, it's a case of we have to establish that. Everyone's so busy. But, with one of my clients, he was saying, like, I've got so much on. I said, like, okay. And it basically reeled off all these things that he needed to do. And then when we reverted back to his values was actually, his family, but he was so busy with other things. So therefore he had to reprioritize. Actually, my family's really important. Why am I busy doing these things when actually there's a couple of the areas that I can just drop and make myself more content by behaviors and actions that represent the values, and you have to
Right.
revisit that.
Like figuring out what's actually important and what isn't.
Absolutely. It's really, yeah. Whenever a client says, I'm too busy, and everyone says that, oh, look, I make that mistake, I reckon,
Sure.
everyone does, right? So I'm too busy to do that. Reframe that. Reframe that to that's not my priority right now, or that is my priority right now. So it's that simple kind of going from I'm too busy and things are on me, rather than going, actually, what's my priority? And then it shifts that kind of dynamic into, for a classic one is like, I'm too busy to go to the gym. For example, it's
Sure.
like a practical one that I've heard quite a lot. It's like, okay, well, you frame that to it's not important enough.
Mm.
And then if it's not important enough, okay. But I think a lot of people kind of realize now, actually, my health and well-being is actually a priority. Therefore, the gym should be a priority, or whatever activity they do, squash or anything, or running around with the kids just playing basketball. Is that a priority or not?
Right. Yeah, for sure. So it's more like even just trying to figure out like what does life look like with our goals that we need to do. Like even in your example of running around with the kids, like you're hitting exercise and being a good dad in those. So is there something to that of combining things to accomplish goals?
Yeah, and the step before, but there's a step before that which requires a level of mindfulness and being conscious
Absolutely.
of, we use this term values a lot,
Mhm.
but actually really being conscious of knowing what your values are,
Mm.
and then and then being accountable and saying, are my behaviors and actions representative of the values that I want? So the first thing is being conscious of your values. What's important to you, right?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
it's really,
Yeah, absolutely.
and I think most people would actually say the same thing. So what's important to me is potentially being, a good father. Is that important to you? Having that quality time with your children and raising them in the right way, and with your partner as well. Is that important to you? I think most people would say that, but they may not ask that question. And what I do with my clients is actually push and ask and go, like, is that important? What's important?
For sure.
And then from there, you go on behaviors and actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. You're a dad
Now.
in your life right now.
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to meet your youngest producer, the little boy. That was really sweet. That was a
Yeah,
lovely
he's
moment. A boy, wasn't it? The little boy is a priority, right? So yeah, I've got work to do, but also my baby here, I've got to make sure that he's all right and he's getting cuddles, and that's a demonstration and a behavior and an action that communicates your value set. And I'd like to think I'd do the same as well. Like, this morning I made it a priority to put the laptop away and take my daughter out for a baby chino and a bacon sandwich at the coffee shop. So we do, I do that as much as she doesn't like always doing it, but I value that quality time. And what that means is that half an hour is a priority
mm,
there and there. Like the phone isn't, work isn't, like that's a priority. And it's one of my favorite times of the week. And what the beautiful thing about, children, any of your listeners are, if they're parents, the wonderful thing about children, and I think, you've got more experience than I, but you having three, is that they draw you into what is important if you
mm,
actually pay attention.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of my favorite stories with India is my little girl is, I was in my head about work and, looking at trading prices and stuff. And it was just in my head, as most people are. And she stopped me dead. It's just like, Dad, butterfly. It seems like such a simple thing. And I'm sure I've missed many moments, but what they do and teach you is they bring you into right here and right now to effectively the divine. But what it all points to is that sense of being here and now. And children are wonderful at doing that. So they'll get you to draw, they'll get you to paint, they'll point at a tree. Or if you pat a dog, anything that brings you into the only thing in the world that has any value, which is that sense of like here and now and presence.
Mm.
And once you tap into that sense of presence, the ideal is that you don't need, your kids to prompt you or your dog to prompt you in terms of being here and now. You could do that yourself. And maybe you create that environment for yourself to go, I need to be present and still and calm. And then your behaviors and actions would stem from a place that is more conscious and more values aligned.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
for
So,
sure.
someone like a single guy or single gal could do this, or at least start the process.
Or at least start the process.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's firstly is a wonderful to get to that point is a beautiful thing. So that's great. It's like I need to be more present. I need to get a bit more kind of in touch with my kind of authentic self without sounding too woo-woo. And I need to get in touch with what I know is the divine in myself, right? So even acknowledging that is unbelievable. And then after that, it's actually quite straightforward in terms of the practicalities of doing it. So again, with what, using a case that I recently with one of my clients was, well, she did have kids, but she also needed, what kids can also do is they really take you out of the present. It's like, where's my
Sure.
shoes? Where's my stuff? Right. So they can bring you into it, but they also obviously take you out of it. What we found with her was, I need 5 minutes for myself, or, I
Mm.
need to be more mindful. I need that sense of just calm before I crack on with my day. So so then the hardest step for me is acknowledging that. The second bit is fairly easy, practical steps, right? Okay, so what do you need? Okay, I need, for how long do you need? Right, I would love like half an hour to walk on a hill and like, look at the sunset. It's like, it's not overly
Yeah.
practical. So with her, it was just like, let's just commit to 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. Okay, where? If for her, it was like, I'd like, a candle and in my bedroom to kind of, and 5 minutes. Okay, great. You know where? When works for you? Again, practical. Like it's like, oh, I have to drop the kids off at 9 o'clock. Can you do that? Right. Okay. So that's that. So when, where, and how long for. Right. The practicalities of being mindful, which is actually really important. And then it's just like, okay, so what's the biggest obstacle towards like not doing that? It's just like, oh, I get too busy, I get rushed. Normally, the best routine for the morning is actually starts the night before. So it's like, okay, well, actually, I can already kind of mentally prepare myself to do that. And also maybe just make my, as soon as I get up, make the bed so it looks beautiful and presentable and have my, a match by the candle,
Yeah.
just those little things. And everyone's different. So well, that won't work for everyone, right? So it's, that's why I do one-on-one coaching is everyone's different. What works for that individual? So, if somebody is asking, how do I get more present, more mindful? That step in itself is a beautiful place to start that most people don't get to. So the fact that they've even asking that question, they should like pat themselves on the back and go, I'm already 3/4 of the way there. Then
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
the practicalities of.
Yeah. So even though it sounds so good to like kind of naturally have this moment of presence here and now, mindfulness, it's still valuable to have a plan and at least establish like locations, patterns, things we're going to do. Like you have to plan it out
Yeah, I would say so to make it practical.
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But excuse me, the fact that they want to do that in the first place is probably the hardest step. And then it's really establishing after that, even before the plan and everything, though. The plan is, like I said, the easy part. The plan before that is acknowledging, and then also, is it important enough?
Mm. Yeah.
Those two things. So it's like again, we
Yep.
were talking about at the start of the show. I'm too busy. Okay, priorities. Like, what's a priority? Maybe for them at that point in their life, whatever, being present and mindful is not a priority. You get there in your own time.
Mhm.
And then when I get to, so I'm not going to say like need to be more mindful. It's just like no, you can't tell them to do that. It's like they need to kind of
Right.
get there on their own, right? So if they even come to me in the first place and talk to me about these sort of conversations, they've literally done most of the hard work. And then it's what I do is ask them questions about why is important, why, and then again with many more clients, they verbalize that themselves. They tell them, actually, it will make me a lot calmer, a lot more structured in the day, and will give me a bit of that boost to make their whole day, beautifully unproductive. But they need to acknowledge that themselves
Mm,
rather than me saying, be more mindful.
right. Yeah. So, what if someone comes in even before like wanting to do that, they're like, why can't I be like that?
Yeah. Someone said
What do
that.
you do with that?
Well, they would have done the hard work to acknowledge the fact that they want to be more
So it's
present and
still
mindful.
okay,
So it's so
for sure.
And we kind of, and we dig though, right? We dig a little bit in terms of,
yeah.
okay, so what's going on right now with them? And normally it's around anxiety, negative mind scripts that they get in their head all the time. They spiral, they're not sleeping. And we actually dig a little bit about that, about like where they're at now. We dig that like little pain out, and we kind of acknowledge it more rather than run away from it. We actually acknowledge that they are, struggling with, anxiety, negative thoughts in their head, and nurturing actually, it's a slightly different conversation, but actually nurturing the negative thoughts in the head, because rather than just running away, nurturing them, going, and I also ask the question to them, so like that negative voice in your head, the repeating script. Now, that normally is around something like, oh, I'm not good enough. What if I fail? And that little nurturing voice is actually there. Again, the conversation comes a little bit down the line, but generally speaking, in my experience, that nurturing voice is actually there to keep them safe. Now, if they acknowledge that rather than going, oh, it's a negative voice, we actually there. It's like potentially it's like a younger version of themselves, and it's actually there to keep them safe. Once they've kind of established that, rather than that voice being them, they establish a little distance between their true kind of divine essence being themselves and that voice. If they separate the two, they have a different relationship dynamic with it. And again, that acknowledgement of that kind of negative voice comes with, you can only really get to that point when you are still mindful, observing the thoughts in your head impartially without judgment.
Mm,
And that requires that presence. And so going into the question, how can it be more like that? Acknowledgement of that is awesome. Digging a little bit about the pain that they currently have and the anxieties around it, and then stemming into, okay, acknowledging those anxieties, that little voice in your head that is bringing them down. Acknowledging that also is separate from their end, true, authentic kind of self, divine, as it were. Um, and then and then rather than reacting to voice just like that, which most people do, I still do now. React to that voice, negative spiral, acknowledging it in a state of kind of presence,
mm,
and then behaviors. So your reaction to that negativity changes fundamentally.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And would you say
Somebody.
How long? What takes?
like for them kind of tap into that, like just acknowledging the presence, being here and now, being mindful, when does it become natural?
Oof, great question. So one of my favorite quotes, it's gosh, it wasn't Nietzsche. It was Viktor Frankl. He wrote a wonderful book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he said, kind of in between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space lies the quote, lies your strength and freedom to choose. So when you say, how long does it take? The beautiful thing about being present, which happens to most people accidentally when they pat a dog or go for a walk or they do a lot of exercise, that happens naturally. But once you acknowledge it, the great thing about it is that once you've done it once, it's easier to do the second time. And then it kind of is it's like a steep learning curve, as it were. So the hardest part is actually acknowledging and doing it once. And then after that, it it becomes easier and easier. So the first kind of steps towards being mindful, as it were, the hardest part is kind of the start, as it were. And then once you build it into, is it important, a priority for you to build that into your daily life? It might not be, it might be. And when they are ready for that, then it's easier to build that kind of a pattern, as it were. So the question is, how long is, it's obviously different for everyone. And also so the beautiful thing, it gets easier, but the tricky thing is it never stops, right? I mean,
Mm. Yeah.
I like to think I'm quite well versed in being mindful, but I struggle still, every kind of day with it. But with the negative thoughts. But I'm lucky enough now to kind of have a bit of a experience and mindset where, well, I say mindset is an interesting one because, again, another beautiful quote, Albert Einstein: problems of the mind can't be solved on the level of the mind. You need to. So what he means by that, I believe, and one interpretation is, you need to be conscious of your thoughts rather than be your thoughts. So if you're conscious of your thoughts and you just observe them impartially, you can react to them. You react to them differently. And the first time you do that, it's probably possibly the hardest, but then it gets easier and easier.
Yeah. So it's more like if someone does it themselves the first time and they accomplish it, it's like, okay, I can keep doing this. I can keep going.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you kind of say like, oh, it's mindset, but actually, I don't think it is mindset. I think it's yes, there is a level of obviously acknowledging the thought, but I think more it's like a, if you use the term kind of becoming more conscious. So, and what does that mean? That's a really important term. Like, what does that mean? Like being more conscious.
Hmm.
It's I suggest, or one interpretation of that, of the term being more conscious, is observing your thoughts impartially, which isn't mind activity. It's it's a level of intelligence or consciousness or the element of kind of the divine, as it were, that is aware of your thoughts, not your thoughts.
Mm.
And if you tap into that, it gets bigger and bigger every time you use it, and that's really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, sure.
For sure. So,
For sure. So
switching gears a little bit, like I'm a mental health counselor and you're a life coach. Some people might look at us and be like, they're different. But I'm kind of looking at us and even the way you're speaking and the way I do therapy, I'm like, there's a lot of similarities there between life coaching and therapy. Like, I'm curious to know your thoughts about that, if you've ever heard that or if
Well, it depends on, obviously, so many different types of therapy, as it were, is right. So
right.
let's say a psychologist would predominantly look back into that, and it's effectively CBT,
Mhm.
and I obviously do that as well, but I also look forward. Now that's a paradox, right? Because ultimately, the thing of value that I believe is the only thing is kind of here and now, in that sense of presence, which I think Eckhart Tolle, for example, writes about beautifully in his books. I couldn't recommend those books. I read maybe The Power Now and A New Earth. I probably go through them once a year, or I read them or listen to them. And so that's the paradox, right? You have to look back, but you look
Right.
back in the present, and you look forward. You look forward in the present, and so with my clients, I always say, what does success look like? And that's a really important question because
Mm.
quite often, a lot of people lie. I mean, they lie to themselves. They don't mean to. It's just a triggering thought pattern. And then normally goes to, I need to make this much money, or I need to get this much promotion. You do a little bit of talk and chat, and actually their goals of what success looks like, it doesn't represent what actually they value.
Mm. Yeah.
So people tend to kind of, so it's like what they think the world wants from them rather than what they want. So, normally it takes a little while for people to acknowledge success is building or maintaining or developing the relationships with the people that they love.
Mm.
That, and also normally as well, and again, it comes a little bit further. So success is also service to others. Now, that's not, I would say that's bordering on a universal principle, but it takes everyone gets there at different stages. So it could be right now, success for me is getting a new car or getting that promotion, things like that. And that's absolutely fine and valid.
sure.
But I also think that there's another element to what drives people forward. And I also believe, actually, I've probably not said this too much out loud, like that in Australia, it's like a massive kind of mental health issue. And I think it's because, one theory you could put forward is because people are chasing the wrong things.
Mm.
And why are they doing that? It's because their behaviors don't represent their true values. And why is that happening?
Yeah.
It's because there's so much outside noise about what they think they should be doing rather than listening to kind of that small, quiet voice, as it were. And that requires, again, we go back to it, you know, being more conscious and is what I'm doing on a daily basis representing what I what I value?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So you mentioned a mental health crisis in Australia. Like, what is that exactly? What does that mean? How do you kind of like how do you know? I mean, you live there. I don't. Like, what does that look like for you over there?
Well, in the severe cases, in there's obviously self harm and suicide rates, depression rates, anxiety rates. These are huge, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's becoming more prevalent, and actually in men. Now it is, I have to acknowledge as well, like it's getting better in terms of at least this acknowledgement of, over here we've
Yeah.
got Beyond Blue, and which is more centered around male depression, and I
Mhm.
think women are much better at communicating, their kind of inner grievances far better than men, right? Culturally,
Sure.
I think
Sure.
it's almost still it's got better. Again, you're doing your show, and that's gaining popularity because society's acknowledged that I'm sad. I need to talk about it,
Right.
right?
100%.
Right.
And then once you start talking about it, you can actually come up with the solutions too and
Mhm.
why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you need obviously that first conversation first, which is happening more and more. I'm finding, but it's still a fair way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Like, it's definitely a lot of stuff that you said is something I'm seeing, especially over in like my profession. Like a lot of men are coming forward and just being like, "Hey, like I'm struggling with this. I need to talk." And even society, it's just hard because men don't really talk about it with other men. So, I mean, how important it is to have like a community around you, people you trust, people you can talk to. How important would you say that is?
Would you say that is?
Well, it's bordering on it's fundamental. We're social animals, but
Absolutely.
it's also
Absolutely.
when you say that though, how important is it to have the community and things like that? It can also be detrimental because culturally,
Absolutely.
there's a problem.
Absolutely.
So therefore, your community is not helping you, right? So
Right.
if you, I think maybe in the UK and possibly here, there's a bit of a culture around not talking about it because otherwise you just whinging man up, as it were. And then there's a culture of a lot of alcohol and substance abuse. All right. Because the easiest thing in the world, really, is to go and get drunk. That'll
Right.
fix everything for a couple of hours, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's a culture. So when you say how important is it to have the community and things like that, depends on what community
Yeah.
you're kind of falling into, right? Because a lot of communities' actions and behaviors and culture is not conducive to a more conscious and authentic, as it were, environment.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And even like that
Sure. And
term
even like that term.
or the phrase like getting drunk, it's like that might be what your community does. And even that term, like being authentic, is so
Is so
like so undefined sometimes. Like some people have different definitions of what that means. Like you could mean have one definition and I could have it. And it just depends.
just depends.
Oh, look, I throw around these words like consciousness and authenticity and things like that. They're just effectively could be buzzwords, right? They're probably overused.
Sure.
To have the conversation, define it. Like when I was a kid, I think we touched on this last time we spoke. It's like just be yourself, right? It's overused and thrown out so much. It's such an important like pointing towards the right direction. Just be yourself. What does that mean?
Right.
Just be yourself. I had no idea what being authentic or just be yourself. But I do. Again, we'll stem to the what it comes down to is gaining somehow a level of consciousness of your thoughts to acknowledge that your thoughts aren't yourself.
Mhm.
Your conscious being is yourself. And I've thrown in a quote for the hell of it. I know. I
I love
apologize.
this quote.
I'm not sure where it comes from, but something that stuck with me was like, we're not we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, which is a kind of an interesting kind of concept, as it were. So from that spiritual divine essence that most people ignore, that's more authentically you,
Yeah.
as it were, rather than, political alliances, football teams, even family. Like that
Right.
that's the world trying to enforce it on you. But and it can be very noisy, the world can be very noisy. And then you
Oh, yeah.
interpret all these things
Oh,
and
yeah.
the voices in your head and they spin around constantly. And it's so noisy that you forget that conscious, spiritual, divine essence within yourself. So yeah, absolutely 100% right. What does being yourself mean? What does authenticity mean? Those are really important questions to have.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
And, you mentioned a lot of noise that people have, and there's so much of it out there, especially like with politics and media and these high level people trying to tell us how to like live our lives essentially. Like if how does one how does one totally block out the noise without being like a hermit or someone who is isolated? Like how would you answer that?
Hmm. I, it's not the noise necessarily
Okay.
that
Okay.
is the issue. It's your reaction to the noise.
Mm, okay, for sure. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
So, or for example, so I was pretty, grumpy and angry and disconcerted. So I smoke and drank a lot, and it's just like there's so much wrong with the world, right? And
Yeah.
I was whinging about it, and moaning about it a lot. Probably still do. And my reaction to it wasn't great, right? It was just made me more grumpy and angry,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So then I kind of changed my reaction because I realized that wasn't doing anything for me. So I changed my reaction to um, it's that kind of like circle of concern where you can be concerned about everything, right?
Yeah.
Environment, political issue, whatever. But then there's a circle of influence, the stuff that you can actually move and change. And that's actually another reason why I kind of set up the charity. It's like, right, okay, I'm not going to sort out a lot, but if I could build a school, it's something I can do, right? So the noise is there. It's always going to be there, right? What are you going to do with it?
Mm,
What are you going to react to
Mm.
it? You're going to whinge and moan about it, and you can. That's absolutely fine, and it's very easy to do, and it's actually quite satisfying. Can give you just like being angry back at the world can give you a little bit of it's quite nice to do. Maybe it works, but then until it doesn't, and then it's like again your level of consciousness that's really annoying me. Like that news event or whatever it is annoying me. Get angry and whinge about it. You can do that, but then or you can go, okay, that's happening. What can I do that influences? What can I do that will influence the people that I love around me to make their day a bit better? Because I can't do much about that, so I can't put my energy into that. Oh, you can, and I think it'll be wouldn't recommend it, but you can. But what can you do? What can you actually influence? And it could be silly things like, so you hear a negative news story, it brings you down, or whatever. Your football team suck, right? And it could make you
Yeah.
miserable, right? Well, what's your reaction going to be? Choose it. Choose it.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's a beautiful thing about that the divine is the ability to choose your response to any given stimuli. You can't help what happens to you. In many cases, there's so much out of the world you can't control, whether it comes down to weather, finance, whatever. But you can always choose your reaction to any given stimulus, right? So acknowledging that ability to choose, which is again probably slightly overused as that term, but it's the best one we can kind of think of right now. But the ability to choose is again a beautiful gift that we have. And again, I'll go back to the Viktor Frankl book, right? He couldn't choose. He couldn't choose anything. He was sorry for your listeners if they haven't read it. It's a short book, beautiful. Viktor Frankl was a psychologist and Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
He lost most of his family,
Yeah. Mhm.
but he wrote in the end, the last of his freedoms was his ability to choose his response to, what was happening to him, and it gave him that kind of inner
Yeah.
peace and freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Or
Or
you started in Nepal. You mentioned like tell me about like is it like K through 12 or is it for like tell me if someone wants to like give to this or look it up, what does that look like?
Well, the charity was called. So I went to Nepal a few times. I went to because I wanted a bucket list of walking in the Himalayas, which I was very fortunate to do. But I go back. So I went for that, but I go back because people, culture, and also again like Australian money, US money, UK money goes a long way in Nepal, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a lot of girls, young girls. So it stems from a conversation what I had with a guy I met over there who who supports children in Nepal, and I was having a cup of tea. I didn't even know what he was doing, but we were at this little cafe just outside of Lilliput, just outside of Kathmandu, on the way to do a bit of a hike. And I got myself a cup of tea, and in that time, he acknowledged there was two girls working at the cafe. One that was quite small but confident, and another girl that was very shy, a little scruffy looking
Mhm.
and reserved, right? And it acknowledged that one of those girls was going to school and the other wasn't. And in the time it took me to finish my tea, he identified the girl that wasn't going to school and then enrolled her in a school. And then I was like, mate, what do
Wow.
you do? And then he told me about what he does, which was put more girls and boys into schools. And then I came back to Australia and then founded a charity which was called My Small Help. But then I changed the name to Schools for Nepal because it's a little bit more. Oh, I know what you do now. There's Schools for Nepal, right?
Yeah,
It's a
for
bit
sure.
more obvious.
Yeah.
And then we fundraise to help support build and rebuild. Like for example, Nepal struggles with landslides and earthquakes. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of buildings are unsafe. So we generate money to in Australia, flick it over to operations team in Nepal that either rebuild the libraries or build the toilet blocks or just all build a school from scratch, as it were, in rural Nepal.
Wow.
So, we've got partners over in Nepal that are effectively like the operations team. We fundraise a lot in Australia. There's 6 of us volunteering here with the marketing and reaching out to people. And because we're all volunteers in Australia, it means that, apart from the little transaction fee, bank fee, which still sucks, but like I think it's 98.5% of all donations from Australia go to Nepal, as opposed to like the bigger charities that have overheads, like still do good work, like, but at the end of the day, still out of $1, 60% of it's like admin fees. With us, our kind of belief is just we're all volunteers, we're all trying to make a difference here. So all the donations go to Nepal, which is great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ways you raise money is, you're a musician. So
Yes,
what about that?
What about that?
I play
yeah,
I play mean air guitar.
yeah. Is that right? When you
I can
play
do
mean air guitar, like who do you want to be like?
oh man, Van Halen. I would totally do that one for sure,
Can I argue? I swear that guy's got 6 fingers.
for sure.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, I played a lot of music in Canada and the UK, and then my priority then was to have children and be a dad, and so I stopped doing anything. And then kind of the kids have grown up a little bit now, and I'm more of a capacity to kind of do like play more. So played a little mini, well, kind of sold out show in Melbourne at the Kindred, and then I've got another one coming up in a month at Bergie Band Room in Melbourne. We have just released. I've got music out called "Silence's Bombs Fall Down," and it's been well received because it's effectively a protest EP. It's
Mhm.
just me and an acoustic guitar. So if like I try and well, I say rip off, but I love Jeff Buckley, I love Nick Drake, but it's just me and an acoustic 12-string guitar. I've got a couple of singles coming out,
Okay.
one called Yeah Rose, and then I did a cover of a song that I really can't say shouldn't have, but I love like Marvin Gaye. So I did heard it through the grapevine, did that as a cover. Obviously, I can't sing like Marvin Gaye because he's like a demigod. So I had to try and kind of completely change it. And again, it's just so I did a different, so it's like a different, it's a song, but it's a very different version of it. So I'm releasing that next month as well as kind of a deluxe kind of EP with 7 tracks on it as well. And again, it's a bit of a passion project. I love doing it. It's been well received. Yeah, and I'm lucky I can get to do it again. That's probably why I've got long hair as well. So well, before it falls out, I'll grow it
Sure.
out and play guitar.
There you go. That's awesome. Okay.
iTunes.
Yeah, it's streaming worldwide.
Okay.
So it's everywhere. And it's on
Okay.
YouTube. And so the EP, Silence from as Bombs Fall Down, it's 4-track EP. That's out already. And then there's 2 singles that come out later in the month. Actually, one's coming out June the 27th. Oh God, that's soon. And actually, I released that on my birthday. So if
Oh,
you
there you go.
like it,
Oh,
see
good
it,
birthday.
leave a little happy birthday message. That's coming out on birthday. Headed Through the Grapevine cover is out July 17th. And then the kind of deluxe album is, so I've got music out already, but there's more coming.
Okay. For sure. That's exciting. I really appreciate people who can play music. I tried to do it when I was younger, but just it couldn't stick. So I appreciate you doing that. So, a couple big questions I like to ask are if president of the world gave you, Matt, 1 minute to speak to everyone on the planet, and you only had 1 minute, everyone.
What a
Yeah.
question. What a question.
59
I'm just
seconds.
kidding.
Yeah.
I'm totally joking.
Totally joking.
Oh, blimey, that's brutal. Brutal. Oh, I'd freeze. I'd have to sing a Britney Spears song.
There you
Tell me
go.
which one.
There you go.
Wow. It's a real trick, like, because in 1 minute you don't really say things that are almost like bordering on political and sound a bit like love and peace, man. It's almost like the cliched stuff, isn't it? I'm running out of time, but should be a bumbling mess. That's why I shouldn't speak to the whole world in one go. You know, I think maybe something along the lines of don't believe all the voices in your head
Mm,
is something I would probably say.
absolutely.
God, blimey, this is brutal. I'd need more than a minute, but then people get bored. Bring a sense of the divine, which is grounded in presence,
Mm,
into your life on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, even
yeah.
into your
Sure.
life in general.
For sure.
Yeah.
God, that minute gone. That's a horrible question, but very cool, mate.
So
Very cool.
so
Very cool.
I've never asked this question, but why is that so hard to answer? Is there, like, a lot to say, or is it just there's a lot people need to hear?
I think it's verbal communication. So, for example, me and you were chatting, right? So, actually, something like 85%, over 85% of all communication is non-verbal. So, the fact that you're speaking to the world is only actually, potentially like 15%. It will be, how do you present now? Ideally, because what using words is, as I'm demonstrating now, is quite ineffective. But if there was some sort of telepathy where you could be empathetic and understanding of somebody else just by either touching them or feeling them. It's a
Yeah.
real struggle to do just verbally.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be a case of speaking to the world because you already, for me, you're losing only using words is so limiting. If you could, wrap your arms around the world and give it that sense of presence, essence, love, and joy. But this is sounding woo-woo now. But that sense of the kind of spiritual divine that unites every human, even trees, plants, animals. If you could unite it in that way, give the world a big cuddle, and that's how you kind of would, is a universal energy that connects everyone. It connects you, me, kids, the plant, the trees outside. It's like a universe. If you could somehow communicate that, which is impossible to do verbally, if you could do that, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. They're not forgotten. People are present. So, if someone is listening to this and they're, like, thinking about starting therapy or reaching out to a life coach or a therapist, and they're on the fence about it, like, what do you think you could say, or what do you think they need to kind of get them off the fence?
Mm. Well, it's always a tricky one because you don't want to be like two stars like, oh, come and see me, I'll sort your life out. It, it's always, I never really push for people to go,
Right.
it has to come from them.
Right.
Now, once they do, that is the first step that they do in terms of going, hey, can we have a chat?
Mm.
That is the hardest thing to do, right? So the first thing I'd do is like, you're thinking about it. That's great. That's wonderful.
Yes.
And that's a great starting point. right? You're already ahead of like
Absolutely.
85% of the people.
Absolutely.
So the fact that they're thinking about it, they're already on that path, you know?
Mhm.
All right. So what's the next step after that? If they keep doing what they're doing now for the next 5 years, where would they be?
Yeah.
And that's always quite a jarring one, right? And it could be like, oh, I'm going to be stuck in the same job. I'm going to be, you know, stuck in my same bad habits, and I'm going to be a bit miserable, right? And that usually pushes them into gear. It's like, okay, so what if you could? So the problem is they might be in the same place or worse in 5 years if they do nothing. Acknowledgement of that
Right.
is a wonderful thing. All right, okay, so now you've got a choice. You can keep doing that and doing what you're doing, or you could seek the person, a person for you that could guide you in a different trajectory. And what does that look like?
Yeah.
Oh, it means I've got developed a business idea that I've got, or I'm, developing the relationships with the people I love, and I'm doing activities that are actually more in line with my sense of self, and I'm more content. Stone me. There's like two different roads, and it's all because you've made the decision to be proactive enough to go, I'm struggling, I need help, I'd like to be somewhere different, in the future type thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every client that comes to me, I always acknowledge how brave they are, because they're trusting me, a complete stranger, to go, I need some help. And that takes like so much courage, so much bravery. And I always acknowledge, all of my clients come to me, you're already ahead of the vast population to go, I'm on a bad road at the minute and I'm struggling. I want something different. But I go like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
So,
Sources you recommend?
Actually, I've just finished What's That Tao All About, which was unbelievable. I just bang that on every so often.
Okay.
And because I'm really interested in, because I didn't know anything about Taoism, but I'm quite, I'm going to be careful here with how I phrase this, but I really love religion, right? But you've got to be careful about and defining religion. So I'd say more on the spiritual realm. So religion is used, for millennium, like to kill each other, right? But
Sure.
actually, so my definition of religion, I reckon, stems from that element of spirituality. And what Eckhart Tolle books do beautifully, and obviously there's other books as well, not just, banging on about him, but they unite the religions together. So I've studied Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, Sikhism, Little Islam, and I've found kind of commonalities between them all, right? And so the Tao, I read a little bit and they all kind of point to that same element of the divine, which again stems from presence. So maybe I shouldn't say like, oh, I love religion. It's more of that spiritual element that you can get from religious texts, which are beautiful and they're universal. They're just worded differently. So the term God, for example, it's so overused, but it all stems to, again, in the Tao, it doesn't say like, it doesn't mention the term God. It just is like, it mentions more like the divine within yourself, which is represented in every, religious text out there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And they're really cool.
Sure.
But and the practical ones, that is a beautiful practical book, but like it, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, snooze fest of a title, but my God, that's a friggin' great practical book.
Yeah.
Like a really cool book.
For sure.
For sure.
So, how can somebody find you?
I'm on the internet, yeah.
Okay, let's go.
I'm on the internet. So yeah, the coaching and the music's on, Instagram socials, but then my websites are there as well. So if they Google Matt Rai, Mattrai, Matt Rai .e I always get them mixed up. And if they type in schoolsfornepal.com.au, they'll find that as well. I'll be the guy with the long hair.
Absolutely.
People can find them.
Loved it. I had such a good time. I really
cheers,
appreciate it.
mate.
I really appreciate it.
Well, I love what you're doing, mate. It's really important to have these kind of conversations as well. So it's great that we've connected. I really appreciate it. It's lovely meeting you, little boy. And keep doing what you're doing, man. It's cool. It's very, very cool.
Thank you, man.